There it is.
Welcome to Styling with Daddy Porter and Friends, and I am extremely happy about this one because today we're doing two styles instead of just one like we normally do. Today, I guess I gave it away with my background. We're going to be doing Oktoberfest beers, and I am joined by one of my good friends, Robert Scroggs from Brewing Matters. Robert,
Hello. Hi there.
so again, this is a fest beer party. If I had a hat, I would be, yay, I'm happy. So today we're going to start with Marzen beers, because Marzen beers were the first beers at Oktoberfest, right, Robert?
Yes. Well, originally Oktoberfest started with, it started before the Marzen had been invented, but they were mostly drinking Dunkels back then, but yes.
When Oktoberfest started, they were drinking Dunkels. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, that's, Oktoberfest started in 1810. King Ludwig I celebrating his wedding. And back then, that's what they were drinking was Dunkels. 1840 is about when the Vienna Lager and the Marzen were both invented.
And Spaten was the first one to introduce
Yes.
Marzen?
Spaten, guy's name was Gabriel Sedlmayr II. He was good friends with Anton Dreher in Vienna, and they both kind of came out with similar beers right about the same time, around 1840. That's what they were drinking at Oktoberfest for a long, long time, up until pretty recently.
And reading up to get ready for the show, I was on the Oxford Companion for Beer, and it said there that this recipe here is pretty much the same recipe that they've been using since back then. The Spaten.
That's surprising.
Marzen, yeah. So it's a good one. You can see how caramelly it appears. It's toasty.
I've got a different one, by the way. I've got Rar & Sons Oktoberfest out of a local brewery here in Fort Worth area. It's the same style. In fact, it's won a gold and it's won a silver in GABF in the past few years. So two medals, that's not bad.
So speak about how, so when people say Oktoberfest beers, they're talking about Marzen, is that correct?
Depends on where you are. In Germany, you're not allowed to call it Oktoberfest unless you're one of the big brewers in Munich. They're the only ones that are allowed to brew an Oktoberfest beer. There, they are drinking what we refer to as a Festbier by BJCP style guidelines. It's style 6A, I think, or maybe it's 4A. I don't remember. It's either 4 or 6. One's Marzen, the other one's is the Festbier. And so the Festbier is more of a blonder beer, but this is traditionally what we think of as an Oktoberfest here in America, is the amber, the Marzen. This is what they started brewing about 1840. Like I said, it's more of a toasty beer. It's a little filling, usually around somewhere in the 5 to 7% alcohol ABV range. It's toasty, should not be any kind of roasty, chocolatey, anything like that. It should just be more like toast and bread crust on both the nose and the flavor. Very mild on the hops. This is a malt bomb. It's meant to be a malt bomb. And that's what they served at Oktoberfest for a long time. Now the German breweries, they still brew this Marzen style, but that's what they export to America and elsewhere. But what they drink actually in Germany is more of the Festbier, the blonde, and we'll get to that in a little while.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the Festbier, the Marzen, the amber one is the one that's typically brewed here in America. And also the American version is usually a little sweeter than the ones in Germany, but the ones in Germany, they are brewing that mostly for export.
Absolutely. And I don't know when this video is going to be released, but we do know that you have an upcoming trip here to Oktoberfest. Is that right?
I am going to Oktoberfest this year. I am indeed.
Is this your first time?
This is my first time.
Ah, very nice, very nice, very nice. So Before we move on to Festbiers or even talk about them, we highlighted them a little bit. If this is a big, especially roundabout now, and especially when this is going to be released, this is a really big style. Everybody's onto it. People love it. They look for it. So what would you suggest as far as pairing goes? Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, before we get to pairing, what is the preferred glass that we put this in? I have a little baby mug, but as I always say, I'm a small.
The leader, it's called a Moss glass, MAS, actually MASS. It's a full liter. Is the big old glass stein. That's basically what they're going to be serving in Germany. That's what people are used to drinking it at Oktoberfest, and that's where they have the contest to see how long you can hold it out and all that. That's a full, and you just Ein Moss, 1 liter serving. I'm drinking it out of a smaller version because I didn't have 2.5 bottles to pour.
Right. But so the bigger the container, the better. Is that what I'm hearing? Because we're talking about boots
it's
too,
designed
right?
to be consumed in large quantities. They serve when you go to Oktoberfest. If you want to reserve a spot at the tent, you've got to have, number one, you got to have 9 friends with you. Number two, you got to have permission from the people they're hosting. You've got to actually write to them in German and say, hey, I've got 9 of my buddies. We got 10 people. We want a reserved table at Oktoberfest. And what they do is that you're actually reserving the food. You are prepaying for half a chicken plus 2 1-liter servings of beer and per person. And we tried to do this. We had a pretty good sized group that's going to Munich with us, and we tried to do this, and we did not manage to get in. But we can still get in 2s and 3s and 4s and stuff like that. You just wait at the door until there's opening. But to actually reserve a table, you got to have 10 people, and you got to have permission, and you got to prepay for the food. It's kind of interesting.
Wow. I can't wait. It's not going to be this year, but it's going to be some year. Man, that sounds
right.
Wow. Okay. So then you mentioned chicken. What else can we pair with these wonderful Marzen beers?
Really, Marzen is very pairable. It's kind of almost the ultimate food beer. It can be paired with so many things. Traditionally, it's going to be the bratwurst. It's going to be the big soft pretzels, roasted foods. It can bring out that caramelization. It's a malty beer, so it's kind of got a little bit of sweetness. It's mostly more of a bread crust, toasty, but it is definitely more of a malt bomb, and that generally goes very well with the caramelization, the Moloiden product, and so on when you're roasting meat. But really, it's a good beer to go with so many different things. What I would normally do though is traditional the bratwurst or the big pretzels. Cheese-wise, I personally like it with like an aged Gouda or an aged cheddar, something that's kind of nutty. I think that generally goes really well. So those are some of the things I like. I know that you had mentioned before when we were talking about some of the things you like.
Yeah, well, I also wanted to give a shout out for
some of the things you like to pair with.
Yeah, the Brewers Association, they put out a beer pairing, nice little pamphlet. You can definitely get this online too. But what this has is here, it's messing with my green screen. But anyway, what this has here is this, it pairs all the beers, and then it tells you suggested foods, cheese, and dessert. On this bad boy, it says for food for Oktoberfest, it says especially for cheese, perfect for spicy jalapeno jack. And then it says Mexican food. So I love Mexican food, so I wanted to throw that out there. So you always
maltiness.
Yeah, and then people usually sometimes as far as food pairing goes, people will they acknowledge that it's an Oktoberfest, so it's a German beer. So then they definitely gradually gravitate toward those. But I wanted to tell everybody that Mexican is spicy. Could also do a what is it sometimes as far as food pairing goes, you want to get the same, but sometimes you want to get opposites.
Right. So, you can either harmonize, or you can also kind of what's nice on this with Mexican food is, the Mexican food, usually it's going to be the hot and spicy, and then the same thing with that spicy pepper jack cheese you were talking about. This being a malt bomb, that helps calm down that heat a little bit, so you can really get more of the Mexican food flavors and not just be blown away by the heat. The maltiness really helps balance that out.
Yeah, that sounds good. And again, I'm always down for tacos. So.
It's also, right, all right. That's every day is a good day for Mexicans. That's actually on my Facebook page. That it has a quote, and that's my quote is, "Today's a good day for Mexican food."
You were going to say something. Keep going.
So this is also, it's very similar to a Vienna lager, and Vienna lager is really, up until fairly recently, that's mostly what they were brewing in Mexico, is Vienna lagers. The big German contingency settled in Mexico, and that's what they were brewing because that's what they knew from home, was Vienna lagers, German and Austrian brewers. And so that's, you think of like the Negro Modelo and stuff like that. That's going to be generally a Vienna lager. More recently, they've started adding a lot of adjuncts, and it's more of an international amber lager. But originally, those were more of Vienna lager style, which is, like I said, it's just a little bit hoppier, a little bit more bitter version of a Marzen.
Yeah, doing my pre-production research on this one, I was even thinking about maybe we could squeeze Vienna lager in with these because they're really, really close. But I was like, no, we'll just stay happy and stay with the Festbiers, and then we'll do Vienna one other time. We'll do Vienna another time. But they're really, really similar. As I was doing the research, and I didn't know how similar Vienna was close to these other two. So that was definitely a very educational thing for me. So now I think we covered Marzen pretty well. So then up until what year was Marzen the official beer at Oktoberfest?
It was about 1970-ish, 70, 71, some early 70s. That's when Paulaner came out with their, it's the Wiesen beer, which Wiesen is if you're in Germany, if you're in München, if you're in Munich, that's what they refer to the Oktoberfest as Wiesen, which basically, I think it just means field or something like that, which is, it's where they have the Oktoberfest, is in that big field. And so what Paulaner said they wanted something that was more, their word was whatever the German word for the translation is, they wanted something more poundable. They could drink more of them without getting quite as as full. So this is it's basically like a blonde version of the Marzen.
Love that aggressive pour. Look at that aggressive pour.
Yeah. They like a big head over there, and I got a big mug, so I might as well use it.
All right, there you go. All right, I can relate.
I've actually seen people that will take the cup and rotate it up straight up like this, and then just bring the bottle up as it fills up. It also goes really well with the Hefeweizen. You get a lot of the floaties are floating. Same thing in Prague. They've got big old heads over in the Czech Republic. So that's where I'm flying into on my way to Germany. So
I'm having a
Weinstefaner out of Freezing, which is basically a suburb of Munich. Yes, and that's one of my favorite German breweries. I love their beers. When I've done homebrew, anytime I've brewed a German beer, I've used their yeast. I think they're just a fantastic brewery.
And what's their how are they tied to the history of Festbier and Oktoberfest?
So the Festbier is going to be blonde. It's going to generally be a little bit lower alcohol, I believe. It's definitely, like I said, Paulaner wanted it to be, quote, more poundable. Uh-oh, your green screen picture went away.
Oh, work on that. What did I do?
The Festbier is going to be mostly Pilsner malt. It's kind of like a slightly higher alcohol Helles, but not as high as like a Maibach. And It's going to be, it's mostly Pilsner malt that's being used in it. It's also a malt bomb, but it doesn't have the Munich and the Vienna lager. I mean, the Munich malt and the Vienna malt that's in the Marzen, which is what gives it that color. So this is less toasty and more just kind of more bready. And it's like I said, it's less filling. It's the desire is for it to be less filling, so you can drink those 2 liters while you're sitting there at your table, and go for a 3rd liter without being too full.
Yeah, in my research, I absolutely saw the word poundable. Like, we want this to be more poundable. And I took those words and I was like, okay. And that was from the officials too. So it wasn't just, some guy off the street saying, yeah, we want more poundable beers. No, it was like the Oktoberfest guy saying we need more poundable, right?
We want to. I've got some friends that do a podcast on beer styles, and they refer to different beers. They always give their beers a poundability rating. So how poundable is this beer? I'd say this is a pretty poundable beer.
Right. So since mid-70s is when, but I'm seeing here right on the BJCP, mid-70s, because they thought the traditional Oktoberfest was too filling. They developed a light, more drinkable, but still malty version, wanted to be more poundable. It says it right here, according to the head brewer, Poulainer. So there you go.
And since about 1990 or so, this is the style that they are serving at October. In the 70s, they started working it in, but since 1990, you almost can't find a Marzen at Oktoberfest in Germany anymore. They're all this since about 1990 or so. You can also get some Hefeweizens over there during German Fest, during Oktoberfest, but you're not going to find a Marzen as a rule anymore.
So, of course, we talk about different brewing trends and stuff like that, and obviously this is our anecdotal evidence. I didn't bring any evidence today, but do you know what is your feeling about the whole Marzen and Festbier? Do we have more Marzens out there? Do we have more Festbiers? Do you see anyone rising or falling, or what do you think? What do you think about that?
Here in America, it's really hard to find a Festbier. Almost everything that you find here is going to be a Marzen. They seem to be coming out earlier and earlier, but people are still buying them. Personally, I would be perfectly happy if you could find both of them year-round very easily, just because, when I teach beer classes and when I'm just trying to keep my own palate in tune for testing and for judging and so on, I'd like to be able to sample all beers year-round. But seasonally, it should be. The Marzen, for instance, it's brewed in March. That's the word Marzen. It means March. It's a Marzen beer. It's a March beer. Traditionally, it was using up the last of their hop harvest, the last of their grain harvest from the previous fall, and they're making these strong lagers that can be then stored in the cellars, because in Germany they didn't allow brewing in the summer because those beers usually went bad. This is before refrigeration. So what they would do is they'd lager them, store them in these cellars, these caves, throughout the summer, and then they would drink it at the end of the summer when it's time to harvest and they start getting out fresh beers. They needed to clear out all the barrels, empty out all the barrels to get ready for the new harvest, new batches of beer. So that's when they had the big old party to drink up the last of the beers that they've been storing all summer long. So that's the whole purpose, is to store them over the summer. Maybe we'll get to the Keller beer at some point, and that's kind of like a young version of this.
Yeah, I'm with you. I absolutely don't see many fest beers here. I see a lot of Oktoberfest, and then to me, and American beer drinker, Oktoberfest means Marzen. So then that's what so then we talked about the similarities of the two. So then would that mean that you use the same vessel for a fest beer and you would pair them with the same things?
Yes.
As a Marzen. Because they're really,
the food pairing. Yeah, the food pairing.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying the similarities of them doesn't, fest beer doesn't stray that far away from the original, Oktoberfest. So that's what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, This, I would not be pairing this with the Mexican food as much as I would the Marzen with Mexican food. But the traditional German, the bratwurst and the big pretzels and all that type of stuff, steckel fish. This would go good with the steckel fish, which is basically a fish roasted on a stick. Uh, and I
Mustards,
think this would go very well with that.
mustards,
I think,
right? Mustards with your pretzels.
yeah, exactly. So as far as the drinking vessel, yeah, it's absolutely the same vessel, same drinking glass.
Excellent, excellent. I don't have much more about these two. I love them. I wish we saw. I was only, and you're right. I was only able to get the classic Festbier here. I wasn't able. I didn't see anything else when I was there.
Yeah, I can't think of any American brewers that are brewing the Festbier. It's going to be the German imports, and even then, you got to be careful because most of what they're brewing in Germany to export to America is going to be Marzen. So there's only a few of them out there for trying out the Festbier.
Yeah, I'm looking here. It says Hofbrau, Lowenbrau, Oktoberfest, Hackashore, Superior Festbier. This is BJCP. This is what they put out there. Pulaner as we speak. Though Augustiner. I don't see any. Even on the BJCP for Marzen, they have. I think they have this one. I think they have Great Lakes. Is one of the suggested examples, and yeah, there's none there for Festbier.
Right.
So, you have any theories on that before I go? I wonder, do you have any theories? As as a brewer and as a obviously a beer judge, is there something that you think is holding the brewers back from making it? Is it a harder beer to make than a Marzen or anything like that?
I mean, not really. It's just the big difference is going to be your choice in malts. So the Festbier is going to be mostly Pilsner malt, whereas the Marzen is going to be mostly Munich or Vienna malts. But
and I Americans like more poundable beers too. So
right.
I would, you know what I mean? I would see that Americans might really grab on the Festbier, maybe even more if they were introduced to it more. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. It's I think it's as much as anything else, it's tradition, and change is slow.
No, that's fine. And I don't know. I really enjoyed this Festbier though. I ended up getting a 6-pack of it, and
Right.
I had some last night, and then I had this one today, and I really enjoy it. Actually, I'm not gonna say I enjoyed more than a regular quote Oktoberfest beer or Marzen, but wow, this is wow.
Even with those limited breweries that we're getting the Festbiers from, it's hard to find them. That Weinstefaner, I would have loved to have gotten that, but I couldn't find it in the Dallas area. I found this Polaner at, we've got a local German deli that unfortunately looks like it's about to go out of business, but it's like where the German, people from Germany who have settled here, first generation, that's where they go for their sausages and everything else German. So I was always been able to find some good German beers I couldn't find anywhere else at the German deli, but they're very limited on their stock. I think they're only open for another couple of weeks at this point. That's kind of sad, but
yeah, we talked about this before too. Like, trends take a while. So like, Marzen was the beer for Oktoberfest for centuries, right? Or centuries, right? Right. So then, so it's just only been a few decades. Yeah, so it's only been a few decades since they switched over. So then it's going to be a creep there until people actually, maybe catch on, or maybe people just like, look, I like my Marzen, and that's what I like, and I'm going to stick to that. Hey, whatever. I think I don't know. They're very very similar, but they're so different. Especially when you sit down and like I said, look at it and research it and actually have them side by side. They're really really different beers. Again, it's great, and this is why I'm doing this show, is because I want to learn about all these different styles, and I want to learn from my friends too. So, cheers again for being here, buddy.
Cheers.
Where can we find you? Before we get out of here, where can we find you?
Brewingmatters.com. Also on Instagram and Facebook at Brewing Matters. I've got a Twitter, but I don't really use it. But Instagram and Facebook and are both at Brewing Matters, and brewingmatters.com is my blog.
Thanks for joining us again. Hit the
Thanks.
subscribe button. Thanks, Robert, again. Hit the subscribe button. Cheers.